Hey yo, we in the information age, and really what that means, it's oversaturated. Like podcasts in the rap scene, it's confusing. Whether you're going live or you're zooming, you ain't on the same page till you read with the room. Things in the room, things too many words, and every word is personal. And when it's in type, it's even worse. If you're misunderstood, it's just how it works. So I'm a hypocrite, just like the rest of the earth. And racists think you hate them, so they gotta hate you first. Miscegenation, it's a crime. The melting pot is an urn. They want us normal and ignorable, killing to burn. Sexism isn't a two-way street. Listen to her. And slut ain't got no use as an excuse for a slur. Don't blame it on the evil. It's just people who hurt. You get what you got, whether or not you deserve. You gotta explain it all, even the obvious worth. Don't fixate on the clickbait. Give it a wide berth. The truth is out there, not inside where you lurk. Welcome to the Museum of Dead Words. I got the wrong banner up. It's not me going up there. And I'm Dialect, not Elizabeth Starkey. And welcome. I'm going to shout out all of the people that we've been rocking with. I've mentioned usually Kristen Crouch and Pamela Capella and Andrew J. Scoville. But we've also been rocking with, and I'm just pull them up by their banners, Simon Belulu, Stevie Famulari, Joy J. the Goddess Sanchez, Lynn Marie Rosenberg. Is that her name? Real interesting. Rosenberg is very large. Clara Aiden, Sophie Raimundo, Alkistis Volgari, Stephen Montanar, Demastina, Jose Treyumaya, and as I gave you the preview of Elizabeth Starkey with Obviously. Those are the 11 artists that we've been rocking with, and we have a really fun show today where we got to talk to them and get them to share their experiences. Because things get a little all over the place when we're doing things online, we weren't able to get everybody's interview simultaneously, so we have a couple that we're going to do piecemeal that we'll share with you, and then the larger piece. Plus, also a quick little preview. Kristen's here. Hey, hi, Kristen.
Hey.
Kristen is in the spot, and she is going to be sharing, you see in the background, the epitaph that she's been working on this whole time. She's going to share the final piece of all of it in a second. But first, we want to get to the interviews. And the first interview that we had was with Elizabeth Starkey. We weren't able to get her to be part of the larger piece, but we're going to share her part of the interview. And then we're going to share Simon's part of the interview because Simon wasn't able to get down with the group. Then we're going to look at the epitaphs, and then we're going to see everybody doing their thing. So check out what we've got going on with Elizabeth.
And here we have Elizabeth Starkey. Peace, Elizabeth. Elizabeth was working with us on Obvious/Obviously. And can you tell us, like, what's new truths or deeper truths or different understanding, like realities that you've learned while doing this piece?
Well, I would say during the construction of my piece, the solutions that I was pursuing were not always the obvious solutions. So, as you know, I'm still, because I kept running into different issues with the construction of this to get the pipes to stand straight and everything. I'm still in progress with mine. So, like, it actually took a bit of collaboration to figure out how my piece would finally, exist in the world effectively. So, what exists in my head as something that would work doesn't always work out in the real world. So my solutions were not as obvious as they should have been. So yeah, like I just found myself like constantly trying to figure out on the fly, like, oh, this other thing came up, so now how am I going to fix this? Oh, how am I going to fix this? So, yeah, I mean, it's still in progress. Hopefully it will eventually, I now have all the supplies. They finally arrived. So, hopefully this last attempt will be the obvious attempt. But yeah, like also with this year, nothing has been obvious as well. Like making this project during this pandemic has been interesting. Like everything about this year has been not obvious. Like right now, New York is on the brink of a second lockdown. And we kind of saw it coming, but we didn't know when it was going to come and in what form it would come. And then the whole presidential election, like at this point, I think we can all say it's kind of obvious that Biden won, but Trump's like doing all these lawsuits. And so, it's like so many things in the zeitgeist this year that have been not so obvious, or people trying to hide the obvious, or just unknowns in general. Like this year is a year of non-obviousness.
Does that make you feel like you have to do more work now? Something that you readily that the fact that we can't take as many things for granted. Like, are you worried about that, or does that feel like heavy and daunting?
It's a bit of both because so I generally have a lot of anxiety and I like to be able to plan everything in advance, and this year has taken that away from me. So it's kind of made me deal with that a bit more, where I have to be able to accept that there's unexpected things. Like I was considering moving to a different city, but then it's like I don't feel like I should make that choice because there's so much that's unknown. But then so many other people have like no problem making that choice. Like it's like, oh, I'm just gonna move, and I'm like, what? Like I feel like I need to overanalyze everything a bit, and so I think the fact that there's just this sort of like a haze over everything, all of our things that we can analyze, like we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when the vaccine's going to let us return to normal. So it's difficult for me personally in that way, but it also has forced me to kind of, do things that I wouldn't have normally done based on like absolutely no knowledge of what's going to happen next. So, just kind of have to trust that it'll work. And go for it. Like with the studio that I'm launching, like I don't know if that's gonna work out, but why not? Why not now? If not now, when?
I really love that. So it's like, things could be scary, things could fail, and while we usually want to have a set plan, now we've realized stuff's gonna happen no matter what we do. So whatever you want to do it anyway.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Might
you.
regret not doing it. Might regret doing it. But
Thank you. That was Elizabeth Starkey with Obviously. And I also want to share, we have one other video that, stop screen sharing that. We have one other video that had to be done separately, and that was our homie Simon Belulu. He's out in Brazil. So we did a little email back and forth of the videos. We got the translation. The auto translate that came through because we tried doing it through YouTube, it's terrible. So we're going to be adding our own translation that I'll be putting up through the comments. It's not going to be bouncing ball perfect in line with his speech, but it'll be there for you to read. So now let's check out our conversation with Simon. And this was actually done for his artist interview, but it dovetails into the stuff that we're going to be talking about. So let's wrap with this.
Primeiramente, obrigado por essa conversa. Não sei, eu poder fazer parte desse evento. Sou você que percorre tudo bem e espero poder ajudar com isso. A respeito das perguntas, vamos lá. Bem, sobre a minha história, eu nasci em Santos, da Agência Litoral de São Paulo, né? Eu sempre fui uma criança muito curiosa, né? Então, eu gostava de diversas coisas, de jogos, de esporte também. E eu naquele grupo que me influenciou a celular e estava fazendo uma carreira relativa também. Quando eu fiz 18 anos, eu decidi escolher uma faculdade, né? Geralmente, aos 18 anos, aqui na Prefeitura de Escola, eu voltei para fazer arquitetura. Contudo, durante o começo, eu abandonei a faculdade de arquitetura e decidi fazer arte. Eu consegui uma bolsa de tempo no Colégio da Belas em São Paulo, e foi quando eu me mudei para São Paulo e consegui ficar o tempo inteiro gratuitamente, né? Por essa bolsa. Então foi a partir daí que eu comecei a fazer meus trabalhos artísticos e comecei a expor eles. Me levou ao museu e ao museu falar dos mortos, né? Foi durante a pandemia que estávamos em quarentena aqui no Brasil. Foi decretado como isolamento social de fato. Então tinha que ficar em casa sem sair de fato. E foi nesse momento que eu estava querendo dar um passo a mais na minha carreira como artista. Então eu comecei a procurar por exposições internacionais e achei esse evento de vocês. Eu achei super interessante, porque realmente é um museu com ideias inovadoras, mas no sentido progressista. Isso me chamou muita atenção, que eu gostei muito, e com certeza foi o principal motivo que me fez querer fazer parte dessa exposição, desse evento. Então, muito obrigado por vocês também terem escolhido, muito grato por isso também. E o que me atraiu na palavra clickbait, com certeza, foi o momento atual aqui no Brasil, né? Em que, principalmente na internet, a gente vive esse momento de pós-verdade, né? Então, a gente não... a gente tem a verdade, claro, mas acontece que ela é muito camuflada, né? Pelas fake news, e o clickbait, ele acaba sendo esse alerta, né? Que chama a pessoa para clickbait, né? Isso é mais comum aqui no YouTube. Contudo, a gente consegue ver isso em diversos portais e até em revistas impressas. E com certeza, o que me influenciou no meu trabalho foi nas eleições de 2018. E tanto o clickbait como claramente o clickbait estavam muito claros. Então, eu quis ressaltar isso nele. Sobre uma pergunta que eu gostaria de fazer tanto a alguém do museu como você também, Carla, seria a respeito sobre qual foi a influência do Trump em relação às fake news e, claro, todos os clickbaits pelos seus políticos que podem ter causado para gerações mais novas, para as crianças, os jovens, e o que você acha que isso pode ocasionar para o futuro? É uma questão que eu tenho realmente dúvida de saber qual foi a influência dele no processo para as futuras gerações daí dos Estados Unidos. E a última pergunta que seria feita sobre essa tecnologia, né? Aqui no Brasil é muito consumidor de fake news também. O que ficou mais conhecido foi mais disseminado ali durante 2018, durante a campanha eleitoral, né? Em que houveram diversos conteúdos difamatórios que fizeram com o Bolsonaro ganhar as eleições, né? Nas fake news e também com a participação estratégica do Bolsonaro. E foi então por essa campanha. Então é isso. Muito obrigado até então pela minha participação. Fico à disposição para o que vocês mais precisarem. Então, muito obrigado. Então.
Thank you. That was dope. For Simon Benlulu talking about clickbait, there was a question that he asked about what's going on with future generations with clickbait and fake news. And I mean, obviously, we're not going to know until we get there. But I was thinking about that with this question. And what I decided to look at was like fake news, when we were talking about the origin of that phrase, that it came from the German Lügenpresse, meaning lying news, that was propagated by Nazi Germany, and that was pushed throughout that time. So I went and saw, I was like, what's Germany doing? So I went and looked up a few articles about how Germany feels about the press today. And interesting enough, just like a lot of these dead words that I talk about in English, the problem isn't necessarily the fact that they died, but people are still using them after they died, is similar to miscegenation in this country. Lügenpresse is having a bit of a resurgence in Germany. And there are factions who are starting to use that term a lot and trying to erode the trust of what's going on. But interestingly enough, looking at Pew Research Center, they had a couple of stats from 2018 and how they, the Germans felt about the press. And actually during that time, their trust in the press rose by 5%, from 55% to 60%. So one thing that was surmised in the Pew Research was that the German people, having gone through a generation of seeing the demonization of the press, seeing how that lost their access to what was going on in the power, it made it so that they were re-energized about the press when they saw other people coming and attacking it. So that's something interesting about it. You know, there's this idea that we could have our kids grow up not trusting the press at all, but also maybe we can trust in our youth that they do see the full picture of what's happening because they're living through all of it. So living through it will give them some personal experience to be able to deal with it. I think it's why, you know, when we talk about the freedoms that were eroded in Nazi Germany, you'll hear older people, you know, like, you know, I have older relatives that were in the Holocaust and stuff like that, who would often say, hey, this thing happened and this thing happened. They would lay it out for you. So again, I think that the experience is giving us more of an understanding of what's happening, especially if we go through the full experience. Hey, Christian.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's heavy because it's so current. I think it's hard to. I think it is hard to like have that kind of reflection when you're in it. But what I'm seeing is just how many people their only kind of like education about things, even history, is through the press. Mm-hmm. So that is where I am like cautious and want to hold people accountable to sharing the full dialogue, you know, and not letting opinions kind of come into their description of what's happening. So yeah, I think it's definitely going to have some effect. I mean, it's huge, but yeah, we won't know, I think, until later, which is can be kind of scary too. But
it is scary. But I think one of the things that we've been doing with the museum, at least my hope in what we've been doing with the museum, is attempting to mitigate the type of confusion that comes from people not getting full scope of stuff, and doing our best to create avenues. That's our thing as artists, right? Mm-hmm. We're questioners. I was saying something, I forget where this was. This was somewhere else. I was talking to a friend about some artists that had let them down. And oftentimes musicians, we tend to let people down because we speak with our chest very proudly, like we know what we're talking about. But art is about questions rather than answers. And that's the thing of it. And if we can keep ourselves curious and continue to engage a world where people are curious, then it's going to be all right. So that's my optimistic thing. Yeah. So to try to segue that up into what we're talking, we've had 11 artists that we've been jamming with, plus, you know, the four of us who have been doing all of this together before, to put this massive mess of understanding of words. And this entire time, Kristen, you've been taking bits and pieces of the artist's work, the artist's interviews, and you've been building these memoryscapes. And I know you've been talking about it on the epitaphs that we usually have here on Sundays. Yeah. And this is what we've been building to. So give us like a real quick recap of what's happening and tell us some like juicy details, and then we'll show some of the images of what we got going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's been happening, like you said, over 11 weeks. So it's, you know, juicy details. I don't know. I mean, this is the biggest compilation of images and people and stories that I've ever done. And so I think that was the fun part for me of exploration, and kind of keeping all these stories present in the piece, while still combining everything into a good composition.
We've done a memoryscape before where it was just like you and me. And it was me and my thing, and that created a whole piece.
Yep.
Like, what's the difference between having 11 people and one person?
What's that?
What's the difference between like having like just this personal story, and then like you've got all the, like you said, you're trying to weave them together?
Yeah. I mean, it really is like 11 different memoryscapes that I have, which are there. In last week's video, I was was weaving those together. So you were able to see kind of each person's memory scape. Because what I did, because we were working just with 1 week at a time, I made one memory scape like how we did for each artist, and then put that into a layered file where I then combined all of those together. So as I was working on the last couple of artists this week, I actually kind of worked on their information together. So I think that was the biggest difference for me. It was like creating 11 different pieces and then making one piece out of 11 pieces. Whereas had I started it now, I probably could have combined all of these artists in one piece from the jump, like in a different way. So it was just a different process of working where it was important to me to have a piece for each person rather than just like a little bit of them coming in,
I appreciate that, and I think that's really dope. I'm gonna pull it up so we don't just see it behind. We can see the close up of it. This is the big thing that's been put together.
Yeah, this is the print, and I've begun to work over it. So there are some like finishing touches left to do, but I showed last week the metal being built up with like some grinder tools and gesso. So those really come in back into the image, which what has been shown digitally. Again, if people have missed that, you can look back at some of those videos, but it definitely transforms the digital piece to see it on this distressed metal. So I'm really happy with it. And I have had some feedback of people like that face that comes from Clara's piece. And they like to have a little bit of like a focal point. And I think for me, that kind of is every artist, and it was important to me to have like this visual of all of this, what seems like a mess, coming together into one like really focused, passionate focal point. So
wow, this is really beautiful. And I think I have to say for myself, I tend to get caught up in the minutia of things, especially when it's like wordy things and mappy kind of things, and I can get lost in one point. And having that face, there's just something about it where like I can look at it like it's recognizing me. I think the fact that it's looking out helps as well. And then like I feel like I can take the whole piece in and then do my parts where I look at all the little spots of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it just helps to like move your eye around all of those different parts. So yeah, you said it.
Is there anything else, any interesting places or pieces in it that you want to point out that our naked eye or layman's eye, even if we've been following along, we might not notice where it is or what's there?
Yeah, I mean, her piece is actually all throughout the background. So like in some of these areas,
oh, I'm seeing now.
Top, you can then start to see figures like in the top left. Oh, I can bring this over.
Yeah, I'll bring this one over so you can see it live.
But yeah, there's like figures that start to come out in the background from her piece. Where am I at here?
Yeah, we got you.
And I also hand wrote on the metal quotes from the interviews. So I took some of the quotes from the artist interviews and I wrote them. So like right here, you're starting to see it says so many different faces. From Sophie's interview, she said, "I want to be free, not brave." And that comes down in here. Where are we at? I don't know. It's but like free, not brave. And so you're starting to see some of those quotes coming back out. And then from Jose's piece, his text is, I really love how that came together because I worked over it again. And so it really moves in and out. But yeah, I think that as you move closer to it, you'll pick up, that's probably the most fun, is like picking up on those recognizable points of like the handwriting and being able to read it. And, some of the words like normal, but that's been pretty obvious.
Oh, well, I actually didn't notice it until you mentioned it. No, I didn't notice it until you mentioned it.
yeah, so Normal, you can see that coming in right here. That's from Lynn's piece. So it was like from her actual text on her animations, got distorted in, and I liked how it left it. So yeah, I left that in, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is a piece, and all of these pieces end up being something you can spend a lot of time with and really like discover some of those hidden pieces. But
I love that. Thank you so much for
it's
sharing.
been really fun. It's been really fun. So again, it's kind of one of those things. It's like hard to reflect on when it's so fresh, but yeah, it's been. I think it really speaks to the show and like the energy of the show and all the artists. So
yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Kristen. And speaking of the energy of the show and the artists, I feel bad that we didn't manage to get Simon and Elizabeth to be in the whole group, but you got to hear from them. And now the rest of the artists are going to be Brady bunched all on the screen together for you to hear them talk about their feelings, the things they share. They get to talk back and forth. And then there's a little big freestyle jam session mess at the end. I just put a beat on and told people to do some stuff. So things happened. It's not my fault except for what I did, you know. Anyway, so thank you. Did the Museum of Dead Words. Feel free to reach out, share in the Dead Word Bucket, hit us up on socials, hit us up on the website, any other place that you can find us. We're findable. And check out this stuff all these wonderful, amazing artists have to share. So
we'll just keep it live. So I want to ask, welcome to Museum of Dead Words. We've got a lot of great artists in the house who have actually put things together. Jose Trejo Maya is not in attendance right now. Also, Simon, I always mess up your middle name. Simon Jose Vieira Benlulu is not in the house. We heard some words from Simon earlier, but we've got most of the rest of the crew. Wanted to shout out everybody in the spot. We've got Clara Aiden, Stephen Montanar, Joy Sanchez, Jay DeGaddis, Lynn Marie Rosenberg, Sophie Raimundo, Stevie Famulari, Alkistis Bulgari, Devil Stina, and I'll say Jose Trejo Maya, who is not in the spot right now, but hopefully he'll get back on. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this. This has been really beautiful. I love the effort and the great work that you've done. And I wanted to ask you guys, I was thinking we could start with Stevie, but let's go around to everybody. I want to know, what's something new, a new truth, a new reality that you learned while creating and working on your piece?
That is such a deep question to start with. Holy shit. I learned that people's relationship with words affects the people around them, that my individual relationship with the words that I use and listening to other people's use of words and understanding of words, that I'm letting my understanding of it affect how I heard other people's, and that filter no longer needs to exist. I need to remove my filter of the word to hear how other people use it or need to use it or need to change it or need to remove it. But my filter, I started hearing my filter when I was listening to everybody else's words and everybody else's pieces. So thank you for letting me realize my own filters and my own shit for it. Thank you for everyone for that.
That's really dope. Wow. Recognizing your own filters and where you're at. I mean, that's the whole thing of like, it's so ill whenever as artists, the whole thing of like, well, aren't artists really selfish because we always think about our own perspective and that's the only one that matters. And that's like the thing of art is that second layer of knowledge when you're like, it's not just that it's about me, it's that it's through me. So I dig that. Joy, could you share like what's some truth that you learned?
Okay, so they are right. This was an extremely deep question to start with. But I think truth is just a deep word, period. So, you know, there's no real light stuff. One of the truths that came to me, you know, there's this thing where people are like, we couldn't always be kings and queens, right? Like I am, you know, I'm Black. I can't stop being Black. And lots of people are like, well, not all Black people were kings and queens back then. So in my research and my word, the way that miscegenation played into like this perpetuation of brutalized, like women being brutalized and black women specifically being able to be used by whoever wants to use us as a scapegoat or as a vehicle for pleasure or something to be exploited. That just goes back to colonialism. And in the research of my word, I incorporated my genetic stuff. So like a truth I found is that, wow, a lot of people do have a more complicated history than we realize. Like, you know, it's deeper than you recognize. And so, yes, we all could have been kings and queens or related to, because it turns out I'm related to Marie Antoinette. Like genetically, you know, so that was it. That was like, wow, yeah, we could all be kings and queens because colonialism and the way that the society spread, especially in America, like people were constantly brutalized. Lots of people don't know their parents. Like all of these unknown blank spots, right? All these blank spots exist in your DNA or in your family history or the stories that you've been told. And I guess that's the bigger truth is that I learned how important story is, the importance of the stories that we're told, the stories that we're telling, and what stories get told and don't get told, you know? Okay.
That's really deep on the, like, I said in one of the songs in the song for Normal, Mediocrity, I don't want to be a king. That's a European thing. And like my thought process behind that, I don't really dig the whole, like, you know, in the Black community, we're like, oh, we're kings and queens, because I always tie it to this idea where we are placing great value on basically ancient jerks who I would rather not remember. But the perspective you brought in of like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a good story. It just, we want to know the story, the real story.
Yeah, because it also makes me think about how, like, you know, when you think about the images that I grew up with in the 80s and 90s of Black women in cinema and movies, or just the Black cinema and TV shows, the stories being told about Black people, we're always a slave or we're a criminal. Like, we only get that story. So, like, why is it not, it's okay to talk about my brutalization, but it's not okay to talk about how those in power had it, or to talk about how I'm still connected to it. How, like, let's say through some weird state, yeah, because I do have a blood tie to some latent monarchy, maybe I come into some power, and what does that look like, right? It wasn't reimagining what king or ruling means, right? Because we're all in this, like, now we're in our own bubble, so literally we are in our own kingdom. Like, what does that look like to be a full person to yourself, to have total power over yourself, autonomy over your life, agency over your future, of your well-being? What does that look like? And what does that look like as a Black woman? I don't know that. I've never seen that story. You know what I mean? So there's power in like, and like Stevie was saying, like, words, the filter that we put on words. So if we eliminate that filter of like thinking of a king in just this old monarchy European way of like, well, now I do kind of rule my own kingdom in this modern society of 2020 where we have to stay apart. We have to be by ourselves, and we're encouraged to stay away from other people, you know? So I think that allows us to create a new truth, right? Because truth is as constant a change as time is. Like, truth doesn't stay the same, you know? Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good. No, I feel that. That's really dope. No, thank you. I love the addendum. That would really and yeah, guys, feel free to, you know, jump in and continue with your thoughts. If you're like, oh wait, actually, I had another point. It's all good. I want to hear all of your thoughts. But let's move on to Lynn Marie Rosenberg. The song I was talking about, Mediocrity, is from your word, Normal. So tell me some stuff that you learned.
Yeah, well, one of the so I did a series of interviews, and one of the interviews, someone talks about this quote that is vaguely. Beware when the bombs stop falling. Beware when the bombs stop falling, but the bombers yet live. And I keep thinking about that, especially right now with the election and this sort of in my opinion, a monster leaving, but ultimately the bombers get live. You know, the pain and racism and bigotry that's underneath what he stands for isn't going to go away when he goes away. And so I thought a lot about that with the word normal, because it is a word that has a sort of a multivalent problem system to it, but also is so deeply impacted in our language that, you know, it's a very difficult one to remove from the system. And so therefore, you can't just take away the concept without leaving some of the issues that it's built upon underneath it. So just the sort of slipperiness of what it means to want to remove a word or to want to affect how people deal with a word, if that makes sense. It's very slippery and it's very complicated. One of the things my therapist always says is you can't solve problems, you can only change them. And I think about that all the time, is that like as soon as you create a solution to something, you create 6 more problems. And so, you know, it's more just a shift through the world of how do you keep moving toward better, you know? But yeah, that concept of the bombers yet live, of like, what is underneath everything and how do we shift what is underneath problematic language is what I keep thinking about.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, with the and normal, and I think a lot of the stuff that you're saying, I think of the definition that has to do with safety. And
Yeah.
one of the things that is like a multivalent problem, and don't make me, I know I'm probably going to make it oversimplified right now, but when we think of it in terms of safety, I think like the biggest difficulty is the idea that safety for me means unsafety for other people.
Mm.
The idea of switching it out to an idea that safety for me means safety for you as well, I think that's such a fundamental, difficult jump, especially in Western culture and hyper especially in America. It sounds like easy thing, just like, no, make it a circle instead of a straight line, but like circles are defined and straight lines. I mean, we got rulers for that. Wow, rulers make straight lines.
There's your next rap.
Word. Thank you for that. And let's see. Oh yeah, Sophie, can you share?
Yeah, of course. Hi. Well, when I was at the beginning hanging the flags in the streets, for me it was like obvious, like this is something we need to change. With the war sexism, with everything that is happening in Mexico, I was like, yeah, there's something that we need to change. And then when I start asking questions to the people around and start interviewing, they were like, oh, no, I don't think we have a problem. Like, no. And then I was like totally shocked and also like disappointed at some point. But I like went back home and I start to feel like there's so much more that I have to do. There's so much there's so much like discusses and so much rap to do and communicate and start sharing how we think. And I don't know, I just felt like there's so much more to do. That's what I learned after finishing my work. There's so much more I want to do, and I want to
follow up with you, but with the so much more thing, one of our conversations, I forget who I was talking to, we talked about the whole idea that an artist is never finished, they just give up. I forget what that.
I think that was me.
Oh, yeah, that was yours, right? Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
You feel that, and like, and feel free to jump in this too, Joy. But so like Sophie, also like, how do you then, knowing you have so much more to do, how do you set yourself up? Like, is it just feel overwhelming? How do you decide like, what are we doing next?
Like, it feels super overwhelming, but I think like step by step. First, and then you have another word coming into your mind. Like all of a sudden, the last month, I'm thinking about love. Why people like love? What's love for the world? It's being now like something, or people like just grab something you have on your mind. I work on it. I do the research. I do interviews. I like to hear a lot of points of views, and then get a lot of information, and then create something, art, a piece, go to the streets and hang something. That's how my art works, and that's how I also heal and let myself go, like flow.
Which you're starting to rhyme already. You know, I think it's really insightful what you talked about is trusting in your medium. You're like, I have a medium that I'm going to do. And I think people don't understand that our mediums, it's not like, oh, that's what makes us special. This is the thing that makes us feel like ourselves so we can think clearly. And it's the thing that we have that we can repeat. And I do this and I know I will get some results out of it. So I love that. And talking about love being, that's a really powerful and interesting word. It's been real to me to talk about how love is an active word when it's useful, and when it is a passive word, it is much less useful. And I want to use this as a transition because it's a perfect transition, because we talked about love being the opposite of your word. Alkestis, if you could share about evil and what truths you learned in dealing with your work, and also please feel free to share about love too, because all the stuff Sophie was saying is really dope.
You're on mute, Alkestis, and I'm dying to hear this answer. I could see your lips.
Now, hey. Now,
Yes, we hear you.
yes, yes.
Yes.
All right. I learned. All right. Thank you for being a part of this, first of all, because do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Hello. Okay. Because it was like I was a part of a world or orchestra, and each one of us was a different instrument, and it teaches me that we have a unique rhythm, each artist, and I like that. And as concern my work, the work that I had, evil, it was a big trip for me, and it teaches me. I saw that we have to light our dark side. How much this word was misunderstood through the ages, and it was like we live in a. How can I'm sorry that I cannot express myself. It's like we have to light up our dark side. It's something that we don't really know, the evil part. It's not something that really exists. And if we light up the dark side, then we feel whole again. I don't know if you understand me.
Oh yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. To light up the dark side, to shine a light on the dark side, to make us aware of all of these parts of us, and that's the only way we feel whole again. Because that is part of the. There is this. I'm gonna butcher the results of this. There's this scientific study. I love reading, science journals of things and how it happens, but they've shown that if there is the ability for minor escalation in people's anger, then you're less likely to have a major escalation. Basically, if we are in a place where I'm going to yell at you, I'm less likely to punch you. If I'm going to punch you, I'm less likely to stab you. If I'm going to stab you, I'm less likely to shoot you. And in places where we don't have the escalation from being mad to yelling, there's a higher statistical likelihood of jumping straight to shooting them. So when we are able to acknowledge these parts of ourselves where we have anger, where we can disagree, where we can be upset about. This is one of the things about when I started the museum. I've always said that an argument can be productive, even if we are just angry and yelling, as long as we're talking about the thing that matters. When it devolves into the semantic arguments, that's when we lose everything. Because that's when it's like, it's not even about being whole. So just as with love, we want to be whole within ourselves before we connect with others. When we understand the dark side of ourselves, we understand our totality. That's really beautiful and powerful. Thank you for that. Wanted to ask Clara. Clara, can you join us? Unmute yourself and talk about what truths did you learn doing your work?
Yeah. Once again, I want to say a very big thank you to you and Pam and everyone at the Museum of the Dead World team. The show really gave me the opportunity to reflect and to really think, about some things that I never even dared to think about. Like during our conversation, if you remember, I told you that there are two sides to human existence, two sides to human personality, which is good and evil. It's either you are good or you are evil. And there is something that I found out in the course of my researching, that when you have too much power, when you yield too much power, there is tendency that you might not be able to control the good side that you have. But if you are able to control the power that you have, there is tendency that you will have the ability to be able to subdue the darker side that you have. So in one of the things I created, which is a good versus evil, I was able to take that artwork further. I go very deep into the artwork to be able to understand these two sides of human personality. I'm still working on it, and hopefully I hope I'll be able to come out with more revelations in terms of what I'm researching on. So concerning my prophecy of saving lives, I really love the fact that it brings to light the idea of our health workers, that are the frontliner there taking care of patients. The idea is that while they are there saving lives, they should also remember that there are other people out there too that have different kind of diseases, different kind of events that need attention. And in the course of that project, somebody asked me a question and said, Clara, okay, fine, you are saying that it's because of hypocrisy. That then I want to say that the doctors and the nurses, they are hypocrites. So and I told the person that, they are not hypocrites. I'm not calling them an hypocrite. It's the act, it's what they are doing, that makes them to be an hypocrite. In a way, I use my one of my piece that I did, face off. I use it as a reference point, and I told the guy that, if you look at this work, the work is trying to depict the kind of faces, face masks that people normally put on. When you want to address somebody, you put on a very warm face mask. Then when you feel annoyed and you feel so you feel so much anger in you and you want to address somebody, you bring that your warm face mask, and then you put on your very your anger mask on. So I was trying to tell the guy that, come, I am not saying the doctors and the nurses that they are hypocrites. No, it is the act of what they are doing, that makes them to be an hypocrite. So the guy did not really want to agree with me, but I just hope, in a little way of mine, I've been able to, convince him, about that issue. So, in the course of the project I talk about, I hope I'll be able to seek the answers to the questions I'm really looking forward to answer to those questions.
Thank you. Yeah, it's such an interesting thing about the artist relationship between power and communication, because that's our thing, right? We're here to question power. We're here to ask the questions of ourselves. And, I think of the art when we talk about the Spider-Man quote about great power comes with responsibility. And that's the thing that us artists do, because we know that power unchecked just does whatever it wants. And we know if we can create something beautiful, we can catch the attention of even the powerful. And that's how we're able to criticize. That's really great and all of that stuff. I want to skip over you, and I see you're right next in the screen demo, but I want you to do the wrapping up of it. So, Stephen, if we can go to you next and see if you can tell us about some stuff that you learned while you were creating your work.
So, I think the gist of, what everybody's saying, also what I'm thinking is, the expansiveness of the definition. And that's something I've been looking further into, or something I've always been thinking about, but I saw further into when I got my words, I did racism, right? And instead of going the direct route of systemic or blatant racism, I started looking into these subliminal forms of racism and colors, and that's where my piece lies on. And just the journey of making that piece and then working with you and the museum as a whole, I started thinking about how all bodies, all words, all emotions have these layers. They have these subgenres to them, and they all expand that definition. So this singular item then has these categories of definitions, and those categories then have their own little branches. And the idea of a dead word is what I've been thinking about mostly. What is a dead word? Is it the word, or is it the definition, or a portion of the definition? And I don't know. I think that the thought isn't ceased. It's not done. So it's still an expanding question I'm looking at. But the idea of just how broad can you denote a term, and how broad and how expansive can you further create a definition, and what does that do to that seed of the word? And time also is a factor of that. So just throughout the project, I think the thing I've been looking at the most is the most obvious part, just a word. Not my word, not any specific word here, but a word. And is a word just this couple letter text, or is it a person? Is it a being? What is a label, and what stems from that? So I have a lot more questions than I can answer yours, but I think that's an answer. So.
That's really real. I mean, for me, especially related to the stuff you're saying, I often think about the utility of words, right? And especially in English. English is such an interesting language because just like the idea of America, American English imports so much other language and so many pieces of language from other places where, we've got all the French variations, and then there's so much stuff. We have so many different words to describe the same thing that sometimes it feels like we're competing for them, and then what's the point of having them?
I think about, and my MCs and hip hop people in the place would know this argument, the idea of freestyle when it comes to freestyle rap. And there's the argument that a freestyle rap is an improvised rap that someone is coming up with on the spot, or there's also the definition that people have come with that a freestyle rap is a rap that the audience has not heard yet, that is not part of a song. And I saw, and I usually argue about this one. I'm on the side where I think it's an improvised thing, and I think the other definition doesn't work. And for me, it's not me being stuck up about it like one is better than the other. It's just a question of utility. We know that a rap that someone has never heard before is a rap. That's the word, is a rap. The need to add the word freestyle, to add a modifier, would need to denote that something different is going on. So the word freestyle, just to describe a rap, that feels redundant and unnecessary. But to describe an improvised rap, that works for me. And I try to think of things as, I think that that's cold and clinical as possible with it, but of course our emotions always get up in stuff.
I
go ahead.
would like piggyback on that, like that also is that part of the questions that make me think about nuance or the necessity of nuance, and again, how nuance or the lack thereof contribute to our collective misunderstandings of words. How like something does mean something for me, but it doesn't mean the same for you, or how it hits me different than it hits you because, you know, of all of these different filters that have been applied to it, or understanding, or again, I'm of that, right? When I learned freestyle rap, I learned that freestyle is to improvise. That's what freestyle means. You know, to me, it also raises the question of like what Stephen was kind of saying about definition, about like, what good is defining a word if you can just say it means something else and then it means that thing because you made it more popular? You know, how and how does that change the truth of things, right? Not just in a perspective sense, but like in a way it's applied. To me, if somebody says they're gonna freestyle and they come with a written, I'm like, that's not a freestyle just because you never did it to this beat, or this audience never saw it. Because that's not what freestyling is. And I think it speaks to the truth of people, right? If I'm described by a word and you think it means one thing, right? I can tell you author is one of my words to describe myself. I am an author. But you'd be surprised how many people do not expect an author to look, live, sound, talk, act like me. Or not, you know, if I say I got these awards, it's like, how do you get those awards? You would expect a certain amount of things, right? The expectation of what we attach to the word also becomes something I think about in this vein.
Yeah, and then that's, you know, there's a couple of things you bring up in mind. One, just about like popularity and how popularity can obliviate the functional meaning by creating a more popular meaning. To get a little silly with some rap R&B stuff, I wonder how Snoop Dogg feels about Beyonce stealing his word and giving it a different meaning. I don't know if y'all know this, but Bootylicious was not first created, at least in popular culture, by Destiny's Child. That was in Snoop Dogg's first album. The rhymes you were kicking were quite bootylicious. And you could tell by the tone and the context of the song that he meant bootylicious was bad. It was a negative thing. And then more than 10 years later, Destiny's Child has that song, I Don't Think You're Ready for This Jetty. My body is too bootylicious. Welcome. Okay. So
I actually want to jump in that real quick.
Go ahead.
I think that goes into the idea of origination and like how origination spurs like these different definitions. Because if you take like Snoop example or just freestyle in general, like in a freestyle you can say a word and be like, okay, it means this in this context right here. But then like somebody else can say it, they can even twist the connotation of it. Now it's a negative thing, like kind of what you're saying. And in terms of freestyle and freestyle culture, like you also have the idea of where people are learning their craft, right? So like if you come from like people who like they rhyme with each other in the streets, they're ciphering, right? It's all about off the top, right? It's off the dome. But then you look at like commercialized freestyle sessions, right? Look at like Sway in the Morning or like Hot 97. People come in, they're gonna freestyle, but it's all written, so it's unreleased songs versus songs they've already written down. So like it's also, I think it's a time aspect as well, but not a universal time, more of a personal time. Like where did you learn it? What were you exposed to? How does that alter your definition? Because your altered definition and shape somebody else's definition, and that creates a whole other subculture.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah. Please, Stevie, I see you about to jump in. Please.
Oh, I'm dying to. I love that the origin of words becomes into play, and who developed the original use of bootylicious or any other choice words comes into play. And at some point, its origin, no matter how harsh or as nice, I had the word slut, and slut never used to mean an immoral woman. It merely meant untidy. And but now, of course, as no other use except immoral woman. But what's interesting is that I don't think that we can fully go, the origin is important to how we address it now, because now we're in a different time, in a different culture, in a different use, and we can't go and go, well, it didn't used to mean something offensive, and now it does. And go, okay, but now it does. Now we have to address that people have this understanding of the word or use of the word or context with the word. And now we have to address that those feelings are attached to it and that these actions are attached to these words and the things behind it. So as much as the origins might not mean what they now mean and who used it doesn't mean how it's now used, I think we have to take it at face value at present and who's using it and how. And that means those feelings still exist associated to some really bad feelings and some really bad words.
Right.
So I love the origin.
That can be said about a lot of words, and I think I'm not really sure how to even say what I want to say. I'm going to try. I think there's a danger in dismissing the origin of words and saying, well, we just got to deal with it now, right? It's kind of like the same debate that's around the N-word, how some people, we still use it in music, rappers still use it in music all the time. I use it in so many different ways. I use it as one of my pronouns. You know what I mean? Because if I get to that level, this is what it means to me. If I have to be that part of myself, then we have a problem, right? So, but dismissing the fact that it comes with other things, that it comes with pain, that it comes with hate, even though the origin of the word itself was not that intent either, right? Like, how do we just wash away what was? You know what I mean? It to me is like, it's a part of this, just the overall societal, okay, we don't have to deal with what was, we can just wash it away and make it something new, and like keep sweeping these things under the rug or to the side as if they don't matter. And I think that's where that's part of how we got to this place where we have so many different definitions for things, or I can say something is racist and somebody else would know that's not racist, you're racist. And I'm like, wait, right? Like, we have these misunderstandings because I think there's been a continuous dismissal of the meaning of things, the origin of things, and people saying, well, I like this way better, and we're just not going to deal with what.
Joy, we lost you for a sec. Joy,
you're silent. If you can hear us, we can't hear you.
You're muted. I don't know what happened.
I don't even know.
What is the last thing you heard?
That you said that the origin can't be swept under the rug, because if you sweep it under the rug, then we're just dismissing the past.
Right, and dismissing the past or dismissing what was, and just only dealing with things as they are now. One, you'll never get rid of the past. It'll keep rearing its head. And then that, I think, a major contributing factor to where that is to a point in society where we're all speaking the same language, but we're all saying different things, or we're all saying the same thing, but we're speaking different languages, and therefore we can't understand each other anyway,
I think that's really great and powerful. You know, you brought up something I was seeing in social media today, actually, about a rapper named Mulatto. It was interesting because it wasn't necessarily about her work; it was about her name. Where people are like, "Well, why would she want to call herself that? That's like a derogatory name that mixed people use." And there are people who are like, you know, for some mixed people, it's like the N word and this, that, and the other thing. And I think about like even myself as a mixed race guy, I used to call myself mulatto publicly as a shield because I wanted to say it before you said it, because if you said it, then we was fighting. So, you know, I wanted to put it out there so I had some, just to talk again about power, so that I had some power and control over that. Jose, by the way, thank you for catching in the middle of, like, we're mid-conversation here. I'm going to go to demo here so you can get what's going on here, but then I want to bring you in to join the conversation. So, demo, I wanted to ask you, and I know we dug a lot into this about, you know, your interviews as well, because you're another one who interviewed a lot of people, but about the things that you learned and the truths that you were able to pull out.
Well, definitely like Stevie, it really put me in a vulnerable spot. I was like, there's some hard shoots going on this year that I'm just like, I'm gonna have to like draw down like the hammer and just like make certain decisions, you know? So it just got me thinking that even though I was talking to people, asking them, you know, regarding their relationships and how actually, I was taking notes as you guys have been talking, but you know, when it was said that your perception is not the same connotation that the next person has, and then that's where the conflicts might come up. And just from the origins of what you said, Dialect, of how overall you notice that this has created separation, I just became very interested in how people's most intimate relationships were very disconnected from me and from their own relationships, like the cab drivers, like the Uber rides. That was a very intimate part of my day, because the truth was that I couldn't like reverse things. Like I can't tell you the last time I hopped on like public bus going to work. Like it's like Uber this, over that. And it just became so simple that everybody was in need of the same, which is meet me halfway. Even the people who were very black and white, their version of things with the truth was, the truth is that it is what it is. Like things will always be either black or white. We're not going to end the war. We're not going to end, you know, with the cycle of violence and making up again. And that we are tirelessly working for nothing. And I'm like, wait, that's like a hard pill to swallow. If my perspective is a little more, utopian, or, you know, the person who's more dystopian is going to constantly not be able to see my perspective on it, even though we both hold a very valid truth based on a certain amount of facts that they perceive as facts, you know? So when it came down to like the personal relationships, and it caused me to think about my own, you know, I shared with you, Dialect, in our last session, that I had to talk to my mom, and I was just like, let me just put a check on this generationally. How does that change? You know, she's about to be 75. That's a good indicator of like my elders in the first place. And what I learned was that they really do have a much more simplified version of things, that life is not that deep in terms of like, we are stressing ourselves out for nothing. Like this, you said this and I said that. You know, at the end of the day, it's about having dignity. It's about having very clear routines and goals. And we're all like capable of having a goal in mind, which is still a certain ideal that we might not even reach, but yet we're hard on ourselves. You know, I thought about like the relationships where there was a marriage, and I asked about, you know, even their political views. Like just because, you know, we just had these big elections, and I shared about a couple who both was for and against Trump. The one for Trump came from a very economical place, but the one that was against it was talking from the humanitarian. And, you know, there are valid points there. Like there are things that he has done that has shifted the economy to more productivity. But then what are you doing with our immigration issues? Like, what are we doing with the way we're talking about people of color that have very real truths that are not exactly Kang Andy, you know what I mean? So for me, it was just about like owning up and realizing that it is harder than we've been talking around. This whole speak your truth and this is my truth and I stand in my truth, it is very much a shield. It's like what you said about the mulatto, or even Joy, the way you shifted using the N-word, you know, like I can totally relate to that. Like I have to like almost filter myself, because I don't want to tell people when I work with the youth, like, listen, y'all say this all day, but if I use that word in a context that they can relate to me as somebody who grew up like, you know, around the way, it's not going to change the fact that I can also code switch. That idea of code switching was like a very raw truth for me. And it's come up with other MCs before, other artists. Code switching is very real. It's crazy because now I think with the whole Black Lives Matter issue, people are just much more open to talk about it, but it's very uncomfortable because the truth is that it's become so normalized. See the wordplay here, people? See the wordplay? But yeah, it's become normalized. And for me, it was just about like, okay, so how do we get to really normalizing the discomfort of it all so that it becomes something that's more authentic? If, you know, for lack of better words, if it's authenticity that everybody's looking for now, and they feel that their truths are authentic, then it's really about like, are you willing to hear the other person? Is there space for coexisting realities? You know what I mean? Because we're all like these fractal parts of each other and whatnot, or your truth is valid, so is mine. So is there space for that? Like for it to literally exist at the same time without us getting to that place of I'm gonna end up, you know, shooting at you, like you said, that like if I have room to play with the discomfort, which would be like that slow escalation, is there room for us to really still have our own truth and still feel protected and validated? Because people genuinely want that. They talked a lot about respect in some form. It was either this sense of spiritual respect that I'm okay with my humble self, I'm okay with not having a lot, but you want to give the person who's worked hard for theirs, they might seem more materialistic, but why not give them their props for like working hard for that? Like that was their truth, you know? But for me now, it's like, how do we do this without sugarcoating it? Like there was this idea also that we ran out of time, but like people seem that if you accept somebody's view, that means you have to shut yours off. Like I let you speak. I let you speak. I let Clara speak. So now they feel validated, but was that really mutual? You know, letting somebody be heard doesn't mean that it's a community-wide thing. So there was just no escaping the individual versus the collective. There was no escaping that at the same time while we are like surviving to a certain degree, there's still this need to work towards a better future, a better life, this higher ideal. And it just made me question like, where are we getting those ideals from? You know, was it what our parents showed us? Is it the country that we live in? What your government structure is? Like, what's informing all of that where you stand right now? And where are you where it's just you without that? Like, can we even undo that? So it is very much this idea of expansion, but then like, where are the roots? But in my head, I was like, oh my God, we're like this whole like genetic makeup of like crazy complex backgrounds, like Joyce said. Like, I have so many things there. This idea of safety, Akistis, right? When you said lighting up that dark side, it just made me also wonder about this because we were talking about that whole idea of surviving. Like, I have a need, so I thought about the chakra levels. If you're like working from that root chakra and you have all this fear and you have all this lack and this is what's motivating you, and you say this is my truth, I'm like, you're kind of perpetuating this really stressful state of being. You know, and like, how do you elevate yourself from that? Like, so for me, that piece that I worked on was about taking color in connection to those chakras and moving up to the throat, which is more of expression. We talked about it being vibrational, right? And rhythm, and we can all collectively agree, like, we are beings of rhythm in some form. So it's just been like uncomfortable for me, but really necessary. And I love that I allowed myself to let other people's realities like kind of like trigger points for me personally, because I was just like, damn, you know, this is not good. I can't tell you how many times I cried. That I don't know for you guys, but you know, we all started this together right at the height.
I totally cried.
Yeah, remember what was going down when Dialect and Pam sent out those emails, and we were like, okay, cool, we're in. It was crazy out here. New York was crazy. All the major cities, everybody was crazy. Like the amount of violence, amount of stuff. So I had to do a lot of purging of like what I thought were my biases and where I thought I was, like, what is my truth? You know, there's a truth as a parent. You know, I was looking at Ram Dass and just like looking into this idea of even parenting is coming from ego. Like, we have to check our egos. Like, but ego is not an enemy. So I'm just, listen, this has been.
No, I just love what you just said right there. I had to like speak on that. Like, ego is not your enemy.
It really is.
Because of what you were highlighting from what Alki said about about lighting up the dark side, right?
Exactly.
Like there's a lot more people are getting into witchy or like spirituality now. Meanwhile, other people have been out here for years, right? And so there's this thing about shadow work and how you have to do your shadow work, right? Lots of people like to talk about your light, but like not give any light to your shadows or recognize. There's something I read that said if you look around and all you see is darkness, realize that you are the light, right? Because we have to like confront certain things in ourselves and bring light to those darkest places if we're gonna actually live in whatever truth is happening. So I feel like this year especially, I've adopted, like I've always lived a definition of truth as a fluidity, right? Allowing myself to be whatever I am in that moment or whatever life is in that moment. And that's what the truth is, right? This is what the truth is. And in bringing light to your darker parts, like some people are not okay. They're not ready for that discomfort.
Yeah,
they're not ready
they really
for
are.
that. You know what I mean? They're really not ready for that discomfort, and they're not ready for that, like the dedication. There's something else you said earlier that relates to a quote I've been living by lately, where it's like motivation is what got you here, but consistency is what keeps you here, right? That discipline is a form of self-love because it's you reinforcing what you said that you wanted to be, right? By doing the things ritualistically or just on a regular basis that it takes to maintain. Because lots of people don't think about what it takes to maintain the things that you get or the levels that you get to elevate to, right? Like if I'm up, I don't know how I got a house. This year I have a house now, and I was homeless a year ago. You know what I mean? I don't know how I got here, but I know I got to do more than I did before to keep it. You know, just like you become a superstar, you got to do a lot more to maintain it than if you were just on a local level. You know, people don't think about the maintenance, and I think that's really, it's those that can do the maintenance. I think that's the difference, or at least that's what I've learned by watching y'all, like the discomfort I had to go through in making this art. It was like, it really took me to places that I was like, well, damn. Like, I just didn't want to, I feel you on that. Like, I can't imagine, I asked for truth and I got miscegenation and I didn't understand. I'm glad I didn't get truth now, but like, you know, it should be like that. I think it's a blessing that we are able to navigate that discomfort with such a like wanting to know more, because that you're creating the space for other people to accept it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And it definitely, I think that I feel like that's where I made the most impact in talking to people, is the ones that were more reluctant, but eventually I got to like get them to, you know, speak on their version without feeling like I was pinpointing them. It was just really interesting. Like, you know, most of us, especially now, it's like, yeah, we're talking about speaking your truth, but when it comes to being there face to face, because it was a very limited crew due to all these restrictions, it was harder for people in person to like talk to me about it. Like, you didn't even have to get that.
Speaking of in person.
Oh no, go ahead.
You said code switching, and I know another definition of it, which was when you switch to another language verbally when you're speaking. I don't think you meant it that way. What do you mean when you were how to get comfortable with code switching?
Right, like it's almost like all right, I'll give you an example. So I was born in the Dominican Republic, right? And I was raised here in New York City in the Upper Manhattan area known as Washington Heights. So I grew up in a section at a time, so 80s, 90s kid. I am totally in the hood. And there's a certain culture that came with that. I came up with like my native, like typical Dominican sounds, food, culture, everything. But I also came up with hip hop and the house and the reggae and the dance and all that stuff. So when I was in school and making these relationships, I went through my, you know, my childhood and early adolescence, I learned that I couldn't just talk my usual talk that I had going on at home, like even in my school environment. And then in the school environment with my social circle, it was a certain way of talking and behaving that was like infiltrated by all these different influences, because I was growing up with people like myself that immigrated here, and now we were creating this other presence. And by the time I saw myself as a person of color, like that wasn't even a conversation when I was younger. But by the time I got to college, I was just like, oh, I can't even the way I sound, like I could leave the city of New York and just go a couple of towns out, and they'll say, oh, you sound like y'all from New York, but what part? Like, how do you even know what part I'm from? Because you have this set expectation. You know what I'm saying?
Even deeper, like in your own neighborhoods of like, I was a straight A student all through junior high, high school, college. And so I come and I'm hanging on my block. I can't have an articulate conversation with my homies on my block the same way I can have it with you all here where we're just, and I'm not saying we can't have these deep conversations. I'm just saying the way we speak about them, the words we use, our vernacular is whole different. You know, even the tone of voice, I still use it to this day. If I gotta call to complain about something, hi, how are you? Yes, this is Joyce Sanchez, and I'm here. It's not like, yo, devil, what's good, blah, blah, blah. You know?
It's so crazy.
What you do so that people don't look at you in your otherness and other you even more and leave you out of the conversation.
And I found that also, Stevie, like I found that just in moving forward with that whole idea, I was just like, you know, it seems shameful to a certain degree, but at the same time, like I want to stand in that truth. Like, yeah, I came up in the hood. Like, what's the problem? I have a master's degree. I've been an educator forever. Like, I'm a full out, like, double career woman here. Like, this is, and I will write, I won't sound like what I write like. Like, this is the thing that I've noticed too, to certain, even some of my colleagues in the past. I'm going to share something right here live. I will never forget the day that I had to write for a newsletter in our school. And the whole deal was that we were all experimenting with some kind of learning practice or some kind of approach to learning in your classrooms, right? So it was my turn for that monthly. And after it was put out, I had a colleague come and tell me, oh, I didn't know that you wrote like that. And I was like, you know what I mean? Like, just so pissed off. Like, I remember being so pissed off because I realized that this is somebody I was really close with. Like, I respected, still do, but, you know, just, I couldn't believe it. Like, I just couldn't believe it. And it just kind of knocked me down a little bit. Like, okay, you know, Demo, this is very much alive and it is right in front of you. Even after all these years and after all your hard work, it was so disappointing. And I don't think that she meant it to be insulting because she's very much interested in diversity. She wants to learn and know about everything and everyone. But it just, you know, it's like, who else would you have asked that? Would you have asked that to, like, you know, the person who was not in the same looking like me situation? It was really tough. So, like, this is just an example of, like, how far and deep it gets. So this is a very collegiate, very scholarly environment. And she just couldn't believe it. And like, I'll get that all the time. If they're not ready for it, you know? I was like,
yeah. In those environments, right? Yeah, especially in the big time ones. Stephen, I know you said you want to add something.
I was going to share something. Right before demo, I was going to say, like, all Black people were born multilingual, right? So, like, we all have, like, a home type of actually, the proper word for it would be dialect. You think about it. So, like, we all have, like, a home dialect, we have a street dialect, we have an academic dialect, and it goes even further with the more roots you have, right? So, it's being Black is, like, performative, not in the negative sense, but it's a performative survival experience, right? And, like, you have to know how to present yourself in every single context you're in. Because at a certain point, if you don't present yourself in a certain aspect, you could either be in danger or you could lose many opportunities, right? So, like, just being this evolving being, and especially in America, because these different, like, tones and, like, dialects. So, like, even if you have, like, an American, like English conversation, like, part of you has to speak, like, a different language at home, like a totally different thing. Then you have, like, that language's slang, right? So you have a lot of facets to your character. And juggling all of that, and when you slip up, what happens? Like, people are like, why you like that? What are you doing? Or, like, why you why you all of a sudden switching up? Why you acting black, right? Like they don't understand these different portions of you. So then you end up having this one-dimensional perspective from everybody, and then you switch a little bit, and they're like, "Oh, you're fake," you know. Like there's all these other perceptions of how you can be from what you've shown.
Oh man, that's so real. You know, you always want me to dig into my archives about stuff, because I'll say it kind of quickly. As what you just said about that is why my name is Dialect. Because in all situations, I'm speaking the same language as you, but there's a little something different. And, you know, I can attribute that to my ethnic mix, but also my inclinations, how I dig different types of art and types of things and places and things that we're around. But I don't want to lose Jose. Wanted you to also join the conversation, and what we've been talking about, what everybody's been sharing, we sort of, you know, it's been bouncing around it, but we've been asking about the things that we've learned while digging into these words and creating these works, the new truths that you've learned or truths that have been reinforced. So if you could share that, that would be dope too. And we have Elizabeth Starkey, who, by the way, she worked on the word obviously, and she's having trouble joining the StreamYard. It's messing with her device, so we're going to Zoom her and sew and stitch that on. But just want to shout out Elizabeth, who's part of the party too, who's, you know, would like to be part of the jam. But Jose, could you share what truths you've learned and something about your process when creating this piece?
Yeah, what I did was I've been working with the exhibit for like 2 decades.
Someone's trying to enter the studio.
Like this year, like around out the time that I am, I'm just talking about. So I'm also a migrant, because like when I came from Mexico over here, always be seen from the outside. Like I was never in any circles or any cliques or anything like that. I was kind of like the outsider. So I had that unique perspective. People don't tell you this, but you can sense it. Like in your social milieu. And this grew out of like a traditional, like the people I know, they're all like traditional people. They're all like indigenous for that.
And like chops up all of our speeches. We were starting to get the beginning of what's going on, but we're just getting glimpses of the sounds that Jose is making, and not actually the words. I like the face Joy's making out of that. You're like, this is all just sounds like beatbox sounds that I've practiced.
Yeah, it does.
It's a very watershed. Like similar.
His artist interview, one of the things that he said, which, you know, also has the same root as truth, the ver from Latin. That's about all I could pull out of the words. We're trying to have Rebecca stay, but we ended up losing him. Man, I'm so annoyed about that. Jose, if you saw his artist interview, one of the things that he said about Deserve that I thought was a really interesting thing was that we already have what we deserve, which I thought about a really beautiful and poetic way of putting that. Because I often think of deserve in like this positive, negative thing of like, well, we wanted to get something, but we didn't get something and we're bitter about it. Or we wanted to get something and we did get something. So that validates our goodness or something like that. And what he was talking about, similar to when Joy was talking about her perspective, is like it's a collection of these things rather than necessarily having to even quantify it. It's just like I've got a stack of these things that I carry with me. Let's say sorry about that. The should also get you on Zoom so we can get you a little more clear with the vocals. But yeah, that being the case, for everybody who's still in the place, I don't know if y'all could guess at what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I figure we was talking about words, we was talking about feelings, we've been talking about rhythm, we even talked about what freestyle means. So if we talked about it, we got to prove it, right? Figure that's the thing. So I'm putting on a beat from old Mindsquare tune. You should know, demo, yeah. Produced by my homeboy Mason Lucas. Had Lefty on this. Actually, Naomi was put on this thing. So what I was thinking we could do as we move on through a little bit of freestyle for me and you, we can take the tissue and mold it to some sinew and take the sinew, muscle, and flesh. And exactly what we have next is a person and people where we relay all these ideas that come from our minds when we spray. Speak it in prose for the folks who don't understand the flows. What I want y'all to do is find some way that you connect to everything that we're saying. If you got a piece of art that you would like to draw, feel free to draw. If you have some movements that you'd like to make, if you lost our sister's here, but she pops back in, feel free to do some movements. You want to dance around, or if you want to just kick off the mind and say all the things that you've got, say the feelings that you have, then feel free to share that. In the interest of making it possible for everybody to do their thing, I will start off by doing my thing. I rap a lot. I love to rhyme, so I will also be happy to shut up and allow you to do your thing. But I know that modeling is a big... Oh, by the way, I see there are a number of bilingual people in the house. Trilingual, I don't know if some of y'all speak 4 or 5, but feel free to speak in whatever language is the one that is the most real to you. Anyway, we got a beat right here. I said it in prose so I can speak quite clear. To all of my people in the museum, or we're here creating a jam. And yeah, I see you moving your head. You're like, what's the interference? Is something going on infrared? No, we're not peaking. We're just speaking. And sometimes the rhythm be reverberating whoever the beaker, whatever we're peaking. See, I don't have lips. I'm just here to spit. I have to break it down to my kit. That's my clothing that they would say if I was a Brit. I can't do the accent, but I know the language. I see a couple of reactions of people while I'm standing, and I'd be hitting heads harder than knots landing. That's an old school reference. Back to the past and lots of creativity. I share deference. I know that I give what I lack. And I also worry about when the empire will strike back. Yeah, I saw that t-shirt that you was wearing, Devastada. And I have to let you know that I cannot speak clearer or cleaner because I just need words. So I have to use every one that comes to my mind so I can redefine what I want to whenever I rhyme. And I think that it can be good. Good beating bad. Bad beating good. Bootylicious meaning whatever you wanted to, but as long as you think you should. Find a place to get it with it and find a rhythm. So I'm gonna stop spitting because I'm doing it too much, and I want to pass it off to someone else who wants to spit stuff. I noticed that Joy has disappeared. It's okay. I'll let her rhyme when she gets here. But in odds of keeping it even, I want to see if I can pass the microphone here to Steven.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Put me up. Put me up. I got the deep dialect, what's next? Might design this an architect. I might architect spit full lips, but I have this looking back like a mullet. I went back up, eating like mutton. What you see, and I might press that button. I have to go say something like a squirrel not getting nothing. I go back up. What you gonna do? I spit fast. You spit fast food. I keep talking. I'm so cruel. But I might get crude like oil. I might go back and work no toil. I gotta bounce back. Close can rap. I'm going too long. Sing that song. Dialect.
Yeah. When you was talking about nothing and busting, I thought you was gonna get about money and talk about E.F. Hutton. Anyway,
I want to spit a little bit. Oh, excuse me, I'm trying to get a little bit of my rhythm up in here. We got a couple of portraits and the Stevie draws there. If you could show a little bit of the close-up, we could see exactly the glow-up. Wow, look at that. I feel like Jay-Z on the takeover looking at these beautiful makeovers. It seems that didn't make a lot of sense, but it rhymes. So sometimes freestyle, you have to do whatever is in the time because you don't have a lot of time to figure out exactly what you're saying. So you got to do it before you use the end of the beat. Anyway, saying we need to keep it on moving to the other people making noise. And I just want to see what I can enjoy. So speaking of enjoy, that means we have to get enjoy to understand the noise.
Hey, Joy from Brooklyn. Sitting back here trying to hear the beat and think I'm on time but not real sure of it. Finding mad new truths, I'm sure I can't ignore none of it. That's the hard part right now. I can't hear the beat, so I don't know if I'm on or off it. I know it's kind of profit. This is kind of top coming off the top of it. Like pancakes, flipping thoughts. Miscegenation got me flipping thoughts, flipping through old photo books for thoughts, trying to see if my grandma was once a thought. See what I did there, finding new reasons to flip words out nowhere. Yeah, I'm sitting here, no hair. Used to be bald, now I'm low wave riding waves. See if I deserve it. See if I can do it. Not trying to be perfect, just trying to find a stand in my truth. Trying to beat up these races as they try to be proof. They try to come against me, but they can't lose. I can't lose. What I'm talking about, I'm a snooze. I'm going to give it up to dialect because I can't hear beats no more. So, yeah.
Yo, I gotta say, Joy, even without the beat, you got the best flow. I try to play the puppet master like Geppetto, but now I'm going to give it enough to the person who's the real architect. Yo, what's up, Demo?
What's up? I ain't too into the freestyle. I'm too tired right now, but I'm gonna let you in with a quick verse. Maybe we could do the hook. What you think, dialect? My truth over your truth equals my truth over your truth. That means your truth equals my truth, and that's the whole truth. Ruth, I'm beginning.
That's my truth. Your truth equals my truth. We do it our truth. We find in our truth by connecting our truth, and that be the truth. Word today only get proof. Word to the people, the roots. Word to the people talking about pulling straps from your boots. Yeah. Let's see. What else we got to use? Oh yeah. Yes.
We building. We got the
rhythm for the people who listen. We also got a couple portraits for the people who want to use their vision. Because that's beautiful. Come show us that reward the dutiful. I got a shout out to all of my homies down in Mexico City. Yo, what's up with Sophie?
The only thing I can say is that the world is strange, but so it's changed, and we need to maintain this brains free and also the heart's wings. So that's the only thing that I can say.
Yes, all you can say is the word. And all we can do is show that we've heard and show you we have actual concern, because that's love when you really make it work. And when it comes to us and digging up in the earth, we got to show these people it's real till it hurts. Yeah, we got to be saving. I want to reach to the other side across the pond and ask what's going on for my homie Clara Aiden. Clara, can you come and speak or at least show some rhythms that you've got with the hands and your feet?
Oh my goodness, I don't know how to do it. But I can dance. You can see me dancing. I can dance to the king.
Wait. She said she
I don't think I can say, if I try to say a word, I don't think I can pick 2 or 3 words together and it will rhyme. I'm not really good at that. But I can dance. You can see I'm digging. I love the way you guys are going. I'm really flowing with the flow. I'm going with the flow.
She keep it dancing. See, you got questions and she got answers. You take it there, Clara. You bring it back to Sophie. Ashley and TV, and you know we got the motions. And here with them, what we do, did up on the pedal. We don't care if you think that they could be something that's demo. Or maybe it's completely done. We don't have to have competitors. But sometimes, when we're connectors, we make it better, but
Yeah.
I just need to jam with y'all.
Oh, that's a beat about. I'm like, is that the beat that I hear in the background?
Now, yes, we had some beats, and we have people making music, and people doing physical things. I hope that was fun for everybody listening. It was fun for me. Yo, I don't know about y'all, but I missed a good cipher. The whole thing about this energy. I also wanted to point out all the people who were nervous and didn't do a thing, and were like, I'm not going to do a thing, and then they started doing stuff, and then it worked. Everybody even.
Always.
I don't know if, Clara, you noticed all the rhymes that you made when you were like, it reminds me of the first time I really started to rhyme, where I was like, you want me to rhyme? You want me to say what's on my mind on time? I don't know, would that be a crime? You know, it's like, and you're just like, oh, it's just what we were talking about when it comes to the things that we care about. If we are able to actually do it, then we will just do it. On behalf of everybody who has been a part of the Museum of Dead Words, I would like to thank you guys for jamming. One thing I have to warn and maybe apologize to all of y'all for is that I'm not done with y'all. Just so you know, many of y'all have been rocking with me for a minute now, and you know that Dialect never finishes getting his claws out of you. I think this is really great work that we've been doing, and I really appreciate the perspectives you've been creating. And this is like the whole thing of art and language, is jamming and getting to the points of our, we were talking about universal truth before, and I was coming up with the phrase points of tangency, and that's what we've been sharing here, bouncing off, reverberating off the things that work. And this is how we create a situation where we can coexist, a place where we all get to have a voice. It's why applause is a thing, and we don't have it as much because we're not around each other. I wanted to know if you guys all, could we just, not necessarily for the rap or even for the conversation, but for each other and for the work we're doing, can we all give each other some love? I just want to hear it.
Yeah.
Applause is the reverberation of validation, connecting congregations so that we can turn it into a conflagration. It's the thing that we use and we need to make us feel like ourselves. And we need that connection. And that's what we're trying to do with these words. Thank you all so much. And we will connect soon, and we will share lots more work. And I want you to see, we're going to bring on Kristen so you guys can see what she's got going on with the memory stage soon. Thank you guys so much.